Shout out Sniper T on the beat.
Tamara to the break of dawn is on the rise, with life on the forefront of the mind. So line for line, you can ride this brain train and you can change your station without even touching the dial. So relax, stay a little bit, but listen for a while. And whether you're bumping this in the whip or in a business fit, it's a meeting you won't want to miss. A meeting for a meal to feed the soul with words for the mind. So sit back, enjoy the ride. Time to take off, it's time to fly. Cause Tamara till the break of dawn is on the rise.
Hey, y'all. It's me, Tamara. Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome to the show. Oh, child. Let's get into this week. It is so interesting. I am reading this book called Soul Care. It is such a good book. If you have not read it and you're someone who is wanting to heal like past wounds in your heart and whatever, because we all really just want to dive into our trauma, you feel me? But if you are someone who is, on a path where you are like intentionally focusing on healing, it is such a good book that really just to kind of give a quick overview, talks about how basically they're just the things that are toxic to our souls and just how we can combat them right now. Those of y'all who know that I am a Christian, and a lot of my stuff, not a lot, pretty much anything that I do that has to deal with healing and whatever, there is some sort of biblical foundation to it. So I will give that disclaimer because who knows who will listen and like try to do whatever. But regardless, like I always say, we all have a spirit or a soul and they need to be healthy, right? And like one of the things that I learned this week is how shame has really like hindered me from asking for help in times that I needed to. And it really has been a thing that's been a theme for years in my life, right? It's never affected me at work ever until last week. And so I had to have the most uncomfortable for me conversation with my boss on Monday, because I have always been someone who, like, I'm on top of my job, I excel, I do well, I get promotions. And that's, to a degree, that's kind of how it's been with, being brought on staff with this job. Is I was volunteering, just serving on the creative team. And then through just, the way that I function and am wired, like, here I am. But I don't know what happened when I got on staff to where it's just like the way that I normally function, especially at work, it just wasn't that way. And we were able to get by with it for a while, but it really came to a head last week when 2 shoots that we had, I didn't lead well. Like, that's the short version. I could go into all the logistics of this, that, and the other, but it doesn't matter. I didn't lead well, and it negatively impacted our team. And so he had to have that conversation with me. And it's so interesting because he wasn't rude. He, wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't whatever. And it's interesting because it's almost like, okay, here's the thing with being in ministry. I work with these people, but they're also my friends. So I'm like friends with him and his wife. Like, my birthday stuff, they were there. So it's like this interesting, and it's like that with pretty much everybody that I work with, where it's like you have personal relationships with them too, especially because for me, I've gone to this church forever before working there. So like most of my relationships were established as personal relationships before we ever became coworkers. You know what I mean? And so, you could tell that it was not like an uncomfortable conversation, but I could just tell that he probably was thinking about how what he was saying would affect me, not because he was saying it rudely, but because he knows me well enough to know that I am a highly responsible person and like to stay on top of stuff. And we have since talked like after the conversation or whatever, and basically he was saying how like he couldn't put a finger on how he was seeing me not basically perform the way that I had before and how he expected me to. And, you know, so we talked through that. We have a game plan. But what I realize is that shame, but then also insecurity has really just hindered me, not even just work. Like it came to a head with work. And that's when I really had to like do some soul searching, because nothing has ever affected me in that way at work the way that it has in ministry, which is interesting because it's cool how, like, I love what I do, but it's cool how it's also helping me to grow as a person and become like more healthy and whole, because there are just things that are in my heart that I didn't even realize were there and that I'm having to, you know, deal with if I want to be, deal with if I want to be healthy. And so it's been a really interesting week, because I'm trying to tell you, on Monday, I was like, man, maybe I'm not equipped to do this. Maybe I need to like, somebody else could do better at this. And I'm sure there is somebody who has more skills, more whatever. Like, I'm not saying that that's probably not the case, because there are plenty of people in the world that would be more skilled at doing what I do. But it's not about that. It's about, this is where the Lord has assigned me to. And it's not about me already, like, yeah, there are some skills and whatever that I need to have for sure, but it's not about that. It's about, this is my assignment for however long. And so the Lord is going to continue to show me the ways that he's already equipped me to do what I need to do, and then also help me heal so that I can just walk in who I am. Because it's not really like, some stuff, yes, I need to learn, but the way that our team is so agile to where it's really about what are your strengths and how can you best serve the rest of the team with what you do really, really well, that someone else, they could do it, but they won't do it as well. So that's kind of like conversations he and I have had, especially how we'll work together. But yeah, it was a really, really humbling conversation on Monday. And then it was just a really eye-opening week. And I even had this dream last night where, and I always have just certain kinds of dreams that I know they're from the Lord, and they're always about kind of like ways that he's trying to grow me, or that'd be the best way to explain it. And I had this dream where it was like nighttime. All of these dreams are usually nighttime. Like every once in a while it'll be daytime, but it's usually nighttime when I have this certain type of dream. And it's not always the same like people or whatever in it, but it's always the same type of thing where it almost looks like I'm watching or I'm a part of a movie. Like it's not anything that would happen in real life. And it's been like this really since I was a kid. I just didn't know when I was a kid what was going on. And so, yeah, I just had this dream. And the dream that I had last night was, long story short, we get to the end where there's this like dragon that I'm fighting. Like, these are the types of dreams that it is. It's like, that would never happen in real life. And so there's this dragon that I'm fighting. And so I'm like trying to pray it away. And I'm like, yeah, I forget how I said it, but I was just like, in the name of Jesus, go or flee or whatever. However I said it, I just kept trying to like pray it away. And then it's so crazy because the dragon was like, Jesus. And he was like, I'm not, how did he say it? Basically like, I'm a fire dragon. And so then when he said that, I was like, oh, I just need some water. And I poured some water on it and then it disappeared. My takeaway from that dream is that there have been things in my life that I have been trying to pray away when really there are things. Now sometimes, let me preface it like this. You definitely need to pray and seek the Lord for wisdom and guidance, right? And that's something I've been doing about specific areas of my life, right? However, there are some times, I won't say all the time, so it won't be that, but there are times that I need to do something. And I think what the Lord was revealing to me in that dream is that I have been expecting him to do things that I need to take action and do. So let's get back to the dragon. I'm trying to pray it away, expecting that Jesus was going to do whatever. And I just think it's funny that the dragon like almost was being petty and was like, that's not how this works. Like, I'm not even like, it's almost like it's not a spiritual thing. It's a practical thing. And so then I pour the water on him and then he disappears. And I literally woke up right after that. And that's how these dreams always are, is there's all this like background information and context and whatever happening on the forefront. And then I have this battle with whatever monster. It's so wild. And then I wake up. And so, yeah, I just feel like there have been things like, even with shame, let's get back to that. I'm kind of all over the place, but that's kind of how this week has been, like all over the place. As I have like been going through this book and doing the work to like heal and just getting so much revelation and whatever, on the flip side of it, when I have this knowledge about the mindsets that I have adopted that have hindered me from either moving forward or just whatever, there is still something that I have to do. So, for example, insecurity has been a thing that has just kind of bubbled to the surface more recently. So if I am feeling insecure, then what I need to do oftentimes is act in the opposite spirit. So like having the conversation that I'm not wanting to have or whatever, and pushing past the anxiety and just taking that step of faith, because I've noticed that every time that I act in the opposite spirit of whatever it is that I feel like I don't want to do for reasons that are related to like fears, insecurities, vain imagination, whatever, every time I act in the opposite spirit, I am always so grateful that I did. And there's so much goodness that happens on the other side of that step of faith. And so with that, with shame, it's kind of like at the root of that, it's this thing of like the fear of being disgraced because of whatever. Like I can think about situations that I've gone through where I like really actually needed to reach out to somebody for help, and I didn't because I didn't want to have shame because of, I felt like, well, I shouldn't be going through this, or I shouldn't whatever, or, whatever. And so with that, like when I am kind of faced with that again, because it's like once we become free from stuff, there's still going to be the opportunity to walk in that freedom. It's not like whatever revelations we get, at least this has been my experience. So like insecurity, when I say that like my identity is in who God says I am and whatever, and I'm not going to get caught up in the opinions of others. Like when I say that, I actually have to walk in that. So then it's like, there are going to be opportunities to where I could default to insecurity So when those opportunities happen, I have to choose to walk in the opposite spirit. But really, it's choosing to walk in freedom and walk in the truth that I know, right? So it's like this daily, hourly, maybe every minute, you know what I'm saying, type thing where you don't necessarily just arrive. You have to continue to choose to walk in your freedom. So then with shame, it's like when things come up where I feel like I'm going to be disgraced or I've let somebody down or just whatever, I have to choose to, in that moment, have trust in either the person or just trust in it will be okay regardless of the outcome, because I am trusting that God is going to work all things together for my good. Now, that doesn't mean that everything that I go through is good. I would never say that. There are so many things, even right now, that I'm just like, bruh, why is this even a thing? But with that, I have to choose to just trust that God is going to work it together for my good. So either I'm trusting that, trusting in the relationship and just like the security and the friendship or just whatever. It just all depends on what it is. Or trusting that even if I'm vulnerable and ask for help or tell somebody the way that I'm struggling or just whatever, that it's going to all work together for my good. So that's kind of how this week has been. Like, I've just gotten so much freedom, and I even have like shifted my schedule. I'm always trying to find the right rhythm. I feel like that's been a theme the entire duration of this show. But like, and this is my conviction. This is not going to be everybody's conviction. Now, it has not always, but it has definitely been important for me to have time with the Lord. I talk about that on here. So that's, I read my Bible, I, spend time in prayer, and I've even gotten back to journaling because that's just super helpful for me to sometimes just write out what I'm thinking just to get it out and sometimes see how silly it sounds or whatever. But before, it used to be that it didn't really matter like what time of day I did it, as long as I did it. But more recently, I've just had this conviction that I need to start my day that way. And so no matter what time I have a meeting or whatever, so like prime example, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I have an earlier start to my day. So I have 8 a.m. stuff on Monday and Wednesday, and the Wednesday one is in person. And then I have a 7 a.m. small group that I lead via Zoom on Thursdays. And so if I'm going to have my time with the Lord before I interact with people, because that's what I've realized, I need to have like quiet time, because I am not an extrovert. I'm an introvert who does extroverted things because of my career and hobbies. And it's always been that way, right? But with that, I just realized that I need to be interacting with people out of the overflow of me taking care of myself. And so what that means is, before it would be like, okay, I go do my thing with people and then refresh afterwards. And it worked for a while, but that's just no longer the way that I can do things. So now I get up sometimes 4 or 5 in the morning before, so that I can have time before whatever it is I have to do. And man, I'm telling y'all, ever since I've shifted to that, it's wild. I just feel like that plus the healing, I have so much more mental clarity and like, yeah, it's just, and I'm quicker to, when I feel off, like dive into why do I feel off? Because I don't like to feel off. And I am someone who's pretty self-aware, but then also being around people where we're all like, the one thing I'll say about ministry as opposed to every other job that I've had, like in the social work field, because there are some things that are similar. But the one thing I'll say about ministry is that there is such an emphasis for, growth, be it leadership development, be it spiritual growth, be it taking care of our physical health, because we have staff workouts every Wednesday. So we do CrossFit together as a staff every Wednesday. Or be it just teaching about, wisely stewarding, our time, talent, treasure, whatever. There is such an emphasis on that woven into like everything that we do. And so with that, it's like I'm constantly around people who are on that. And so it's kind of like, I'd say that's the difference, And so then with that, it's like, I'm just, really focused on that. I feel like more intently. And so I'm around people that will speak to when they see I'm not operating how I normally do. Like one of the things that my boss said was that it's so funny because we don't at work use language like boss, but for the purposes of common language, so y'all know who said it, that's why I'll say it on here. But anyways, he one of the things he said too is that, how did he say it? Like the joy that I used to have, he just hasn't seen that in a while. And, so he said it in a like why type, like, what is going on? Like, it was like in a, I care about you. Cause like I served for over a year before I actually came on staff. So like when you're around somebody for a year, you can't really fake who you are. Like you could fake who you are for like, a few months maybe, but like and it's so wild because I feel like I'm more back to myself. Like I can always tell whatever when like how humorous, like how funny I am. Like if I am not making jokes or laughing a lot, then something's wrong because I love to laugh and I've just always been like an opportunist when it comes to humor. Like people always talk about how funny I am. Oh, you should be a comedian. I don't actually really try to be funny. It's just life presents opportunities and I just notice it and just take it. You know what I mean? I don't really try to be funny. It's just, I guess naturally that way. And here's the thing too. Sometimes I'm like actually dead serious about what I'm saying and y'all just be laughing in my face, which is actually kind of crazy because it's really like y'all are rude or whatever. But yeah, so that's one of the things that he said too. And I think that really caused me to really, like, I'm trying to tell y'all, it was like for 2 hours after we got off that Zoom, I kind of was just like wrestling with the Lord and crying and all the things. And I couldn't really get out of my head. So then I actually ended up talking to a friend of mine. And one of the things that he said, which is pretty consistent with like stuff he'll say, is like, feel what you feel. So like feel your feelings, don't ignore them, but don't stay there, And so, yeah, it was a really eye-opening week, but it's interesting because there's so much freedom that can be found on the other side of uncomfortable conversations and even like taking the steps that the Lord, gives you. And so one of the irrational thoughts that I had, and I'm telling y'all, it's not even like I did something so catastrophic to where like, somebody was physically hurt or died, or we were able to do both shoots. Don't get me wrong. Now, they definitely needed to be executed better. And that's where it fell under like my leadership. But nevertheless, one of the practical things that I had to do is apologize to the team. And it was like different apologies to different people depending on what role they played or whatever. So like, yeah, sometimes you get this revelation and, you know, there are practical steps that you have to take, like just normal things that you need to do that are not all super, you know, like just go apologize, you know what I mean? And yeah, and then also one of the things my friend also said is like, write down what you want to happen. Like, he was like, don't let the waves of whatever just carry you and feel like you don't have any control over like what happens going forward. Super paraphrasing. And so I did that. I like sat down and thought about, okay, what do I like? How do I actually want this to go going forward? Because I literally never want to have a conversation like this ever again. Right. So yeah, that has been my week, but I'm telling y'all, like all those things together, I just have so much more joy right now. I just feel like I have so much more mental clarity. I just feel like I sleep better. And like what's interesting is getting up really early, and it's almost like tithing my day or my time to the Lord first. It's kind of like I feel like I just get so much more done. But then also one of the things that I've been growing in is raising up leaders and like delegating stuff to them. Now, things they really enjoy or are really passionate about. So it's not about like just dumping tasks on people, but it's like there's a lot that I do that I can do, but it's like, should I do it? And then when I like release certain things from my hand, and this is a principle for everyone, sometimes when you let go of the things that you're holding on to, be it tangible things, be it mindsets, be it whatever, when you let go of that, your hands, mind, heart, whatever is then open to what the Lord has next for you. And so I've seen that I am able to do things at a more, how do I want to say this? Like from a strategy and like get ahead of things and have more foresight and whatever for my area, because I'm not down in the weeds of, it's almost like you can't see the trees from the forest. And sometimes you got to have like a bird's eye view of like, oh, this is coming up down, you know, 50 yards down or just whatever. Like the landscape over there looks a little different. So we got to have the strategy for how to do that. Now, well, you can't do that if you're walking in the forest because you can only see what's in front of you. But if you fly above it and you see what's coming up down the, I don't want to say the road, down the land or whatever. Yeah. And so there's been that too. It's just, this was a very interesting week, but yeah, it's a really good week. And that is what I have for y'all. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, make sure that as you listen into my life, here are the most important takeaways that I hope that you take away. It is important to take care of yourself mentally. It is important to take care of yourself emotionally. It is important to take care of yourself spiritually, physically. I did not talk about my workouts or whatever, but that is still very much a thing, you know, and having even better eating that I'm doing, just kind of like being more intentional about how I'm fueling my body. And then, you know, making sure that I'm going to bed earlier so that I can get up earlier. Because I also am just more productive in the morning than after a long day. So like I can get things done a lot quicker earlier than when I used to stay up late and work. And everybody's different. Again, this is my conviction. And then also be healthy in your relationships. Remember, one of the things that I did was apologize. Sometimes you might feel like an apology is not enough. And yeah, sure, there are practical things that I had to kind of put in place in addition to that. But an apology, when you have wronged or offended or missed the mark on something, an apology is definitely where you start. So yeah, that is what I have for y'all this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all so much, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Ladies and gents, this concludes transmission. Tune in next time for a whole new edition. Another adventure and mission to share, be heard, and clarify the vision of this whole new world for...